Well, I came up in the slap shot era, and fighting was part of the game, and fighting unfortunately overtook the game, and the league really had to make some changes. We have had four bad incidents of fights and brawls in about the last 10 days in the league. Some have involved the Flyers, some have involved the Bruins, the Rangers, the Ottawa Senators, etc. This week is the anniversary of the all-time worst brawl in the history of the NHL. It's 2003, Flyers, Ottawa Senators, 419 penalty minutes. Everybody fought. And of course, that led to an onset of rules that we're going to have the instigator penalty. We're going to have match penalties if a guy gets hurt. You can't come off the bench as a third man in if there's a fight on the ice. We've eradicated the bench clearers. But all of a sudden, I saw it last spring during the playoffs, the first and second round. There are all these violent fights for the sake of violent fights. I didn't understand it. And we've had four really bad fights with open ice hits that led to retaliation on the ice. NHL released a statistic. This year, there have been 219 fights so far. The season is like 55, 60 games in. That's not in excess of 219 fights. In 2003, the worst year ever, there were 789 fights. This year, there's 219. Fighting is down 200%. But then it's what the people are saying in the game. Rick Tocchet, the coach of the Vancouver Canucks, was asked about it the other night, and he's got a first-place team in the NHL Western Conference. He says, we still have to have it, fighting. And Tocchet was a tough guy and was a grinder and a forward and stood up for his teammates. We still have to have it. Gary Bettman, the president, says, fighting acts as a thermostat when tensions boil over. He says you have to have fighting to restore peace. But this is Gary Bettman, who also said there's no link between fighting, concussions, and CTE. So I question that. This is the weirdest one. 98% of the players who took part in a Players Association poll do not support the elimination of fighting. He said, you need players to police the game if somebody takes a liberty with your star player. And that's the way the NHL used to be. You touch Wayne Gretzky, you're going to have to answer to Marty McSorley. Mm-hmm. But it didn't stop guys from getting hammered. Paul Kariya of the Anaheim Mighty Ducks lost his career because of a concussion because it took a couple of late hits. And doesn't matter how many guys retaliated on his behalf. But there's just this mentality that players will police their own game on the ice when other guys take liberty. The era of everybody's got two goons has kind of gone away because of the NHL salary cap, but you do have gritty, tough guys. And there's still junk going on in some games where I say, that's not good. There was a horrible fight between the Rangers and Flyers last week involving this Ranger rookies fighting everybody. And I was offended. A couple of Canadian journalists went on Twitter and made a comment. And I said, NHL does not need this to sell the greatness of the sport. And I said, by the way, the estimated time of arrival of these guys getting CTA is 10 years from now. Oh, yeah. It was just a brutal fight of head blows. And head blows lead to concussions. Concussions lead to CTE. I don't care if Gary Bettman doesn't think it does, because I live in the National Football League and I've seen it firsthand. So you tell me, do we need fighting in the NHL? Is it a better game, a worse game? Do we need it because the players have to police other guys who take liberties with the star players?
You don't need fighting, but it's going to happen. I mean, it's going to happen in any sport.
It's tolerated.
Well, but that's the difference into the NHL. Is usually a fight will break out, and the first few seconds of it, you're like, okay, it's a fight, But then it's like the refs really kind of stand back and they let this fight become a spectacle. Like
until it becomes lopsided. Then they jump in.
But it's like World Wrestling Federation, it's like they allow it to happen for the entertainment value for the fans so they can get all excited about a fight.
Is that good? Why does the NHL, we're going to go to the old Canada line in a minute. I'm sure everybody north of the border who's now part of our podcast, they're going to have an opinion. But why does the NHL need to sell that? The NHL's got great players, great goaltenders, the European invasion. Why do we need the 23rd guy on the roster to be a thug and beat the crap out of the other guy's 23rd guy with the risk that these guys can have?
Yeah, it's stupid. It's foolish. It's an old school thing. But I think that the rookie that came into the league that's been getting in fights with everyone. Everyone knows who this guy is now, puts their name on the map. But I mean, to me, it at first it seems legit and authentic as a fight, but then very quickly it turns into a cartoon, and I don't really find it very enjoyable to watch at all.
You're talking to somebody that came out of the Eastern Hockey League, which was one of the slapshot league, where fights were commonplace, and I didn't like it then. And now that we know the inherent dangers, what happens up here,
for sure,
it turns me off. Hey, Hockey Hotline fans, jump on board. We'll be getting into Fans Forum just briefly. Do we need fighting outlawed in the NHL? Does it make it a better game or not? Somebody jump on. You think we'll have a few people from Canada want to join us in that conversation?
I'm sure we will.
Last topic on the